We got ourselves a project today. I may be asking for it getting into this project. I think that I might have some success with this. I sent a message to Nordic Components. I asked them if they could match up an extended magazine kit for the Panzer EG200, and they haven't gotten back to me yet. What we got here is we have the +1 extension for the shotgun. We have a 1-inch electrical conduit coupling, threaded. And that is a near fit, not quite, but almost. We have a surplus 12 gauge shotgun magazine tube that I ordered on eBay. Okay, it's a steel 12 gauge shotgun magazine tube, and it lines up very well with the existing 1-inch extension. And this steel tube actually fits inside this coupling quite nicely. There's a little bit of play there, but I think I'm going to be able to deal with that. And then on the end here, we have a brass decorative end cap for 1-inch brass railing type tube. And all of these components, I'm going to put the information on the screen for you. There's a little bit of play in this. A little bit of play. But I think I'm going to be able to take the play out of that also. So this coupling is going to go like that. This end cap's going to go like that. Okay. And then this 1-inch extension is going to be positioned right about there. All right. So because this is a little bit loose, okay, and this is a little bit too snug to fit, the first step of the project is going to be properly fitting this piece inside here. So we're going to take some measurements on the shotgun, make sure this is completely installed in the shotgun, and then we're going to figure out how far along this extension tube we want to position this electrical conduit coupling. And then we're going to make a cut. We're actually going to cut the front end of this extension tube off, because I want this conduit coupling to be pretty close to that nut, about 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to cut it off, and then we're going to form the inside of this. Basically, the front edge is going to get machined down by hand. Going to machine it down so that it's smooth. So that the shells, they may hit a slight bump there, but it's going to be smooth enough that the spring, the internal spring, and the shells will keep moving. This is an actual shotgun tube. And inside the steel coupling, it's going to line up with this, and they're both going to be flush. So this cut that I'm going to make on this tube is going to need to be a really nice square cut. It's going to need to be square, and it's going to need to be smooth. This tube, the diameter of this steel tube is going to be different than the diameter of this tube in here. There's a little ridge here. The diameter of this tube is going to be different. So the shells are going to be moving in this direction, like this. All right. They're going to fly over this edge pretty nicely because it's a slightly larger diameter. And then they're going to hit the fabricated edge that I've made in here. And the trick is going to be for there not to be any gap here or tight, sharp ridge here to catch the shells or the spring. So that's going to be the trick. And this is going to be a multi-stage process. First step will be to install this extension on the shotgun so that the nut and the extension are tight and in place. And then we're going to take the measurement here for about 1 inch, and we're going to make the cut. And I've got tubing cutter, a hardened steel, with a tubing cutter with a hardened steel blade. And I'm going to cut this tubing very carefully, slow and careful, you know, tortoise style, to make sure that I've got a good cut here. And then we're going to use files and sandpaper to make sure that the inner edge of that open tube is properly smoothed out. And then we're going to use JB Quick to install this, and that's going to require working down these threads a little bit with some sandpaper, and that might take a little bit of time. And we're also going to roughen up the outside of this extension tube. The trick is for the tolerance of this fit, when this tube goes inside here, okay, like that, the trick is for the tolerance to be very good, nice and tight, okay? Because when we go to mount this steel extension, we want it to sit flush against that extension insert that's in here. Okay, it's going to be JB welded in here. We want this to slide down and sit flush against that, so that when I glue this in, when I epoxy this in, it can sit flush and straight. And we're going to use a straight edge along here to make sure that this isn't crooked. We're going to use JB Quick, so there's going to be like 6-minute working time. I've got the Wolf 12 gauge extra power stock spring, and it's the 45 inch. So I'm not sure exactly how much of this spring I'm going to need, but my plan is to make a 9 shell magazine for this shotgun. So the standard magazine for this shotgun is 5 rounds, and I basically want to have an additional 4 rounds in the magazine, and that's why I got this extra long spring. So this is like $16, okay? This piece here, the conduit coupling, which I think is pretty robust and is a really good fit, this is like $3. Okay. This brass end cap was kind of expensive. It was like $5-6, and it ended up being about $12 after shipping. So this is kind of a premium acquired component. I thought a lot about how to properly mount this end cap in this, an end cap in this tube. And I decided, although this is kind of expensive, this is how I wanted to do it. There are other ways you can do it. You can get an overcap for this tube, but I wanted an internal cap, and I needed a wall in here, okay, so that I have some good surface for glue up. It's a little bit bigger, okay, than this tube. So down the road during this project, I'm going to file this, sand this down a little bit to make sure it's flush. So this was like $12. This tube was not difficult to find. Okay, I went on eBay. I bought a used 12 gauge shotgun extension tube. I asked the seller what the outer and inner dimensions were, but I needed to make sure that these outer diameters were approximately the same. Okay, so this tube was like $17 shipped. So this project is not cheap. It's not cheap. Okay. So we've got a $17 tube, a $16, $17 spring, a $12 end cap, a $3 coupling. And then there's the glue up, and there's a cutting tool, you know, the tubing cutting tool. You could easily spend somewhere between $50 and $70 building the shotgun extension in the way that I'm doing it. So no, it's not economical. If Nordic Components if they have a shotgun extension that matches, which I don't know yet, but if they had a shotgun extension that matches, it's going to run like 50, 60 bucks. And yeah, I'd recommend that. The other thing is, if any Panzer EG200 users have learned what the standard third-party shotgun extension parts are, let me know. If any of you know what these threads match up with, whether it's Benelli or CZ or whoever, okay, all the shotgun companies have got their own threads, which is kind of a drag. But if anybody knows what these threads match up with, I definitely want to know. Because yeah, I can build my own extension, but it'd be nice to be able to buy some standard parts. At the moment, I don't have that. I wasn't willing to buy a whole bunch of different nuts, extension nuts from Nordic Components to try them out. My guess is that possibly the CZ nut or the Benelli nut will match these threads. If Panzer's done their job right, they're going to try and keep this somewhat standard to somebody else's design. All right, so let's get started. Oh yeah, the other thing is, this could go totally wrong. This might not work at all. I might get it all put together and the shells and the spring don't flow freely. It just could go really wrong. And if that happens, this part right here will have been expended. So, you know, part of me was not really willing to do this project. I was really hesitant about it. However, there's also a part of me that really wants to do this project and see if I can pull it off. And if I can, then that'll be really useful to somebody else, because you can get all these parts. If you got a couple weeks, you can get all these parts. Now I have the standard cap for the EG200 5-round magazine. So if for some reason I blow this project and ruin my +1 extension, I can still put the standard cap on, run six rounds in the shotgun, which is still satisfactory to me until I either get a replacement for this or get the real extension parts from like Nordic Components. So there's a couple measurements I want to take just for the record, because it's going to come in handy later on when I go to install this spring. All right, so I want to know what the standard configuration is here, and I'm going to need to take some measurements so I can make some calculations so I can cut this spring in a logical manner, because this is definitely going to need to be cut. So the first step is to screw down your magazine tube nut on your 1-inch extension so it's tight. Okay, your forend is not moving. That's tight. Step 2 is going to be to screw down your extension, your threaded extension piece, until that's tight. Okay? And then we're going to lay out some shotgun shells to determine how much additional space is up here that's holding the spring. Okay, and this is going to be approximate, but it'll still be pretty good. The shell catch is right there. So I'm going to lay these out. This is approximate. Right there. Plus or minus a ½ inch is okay. And this is, with the extension installed, the 6 shells fit in here with the spring compressed. All right, so there's 4 shells right there. That's 5. And that's 6, okay? So the rest of this distance here is for spring space and follower, spring and follower. So that spring gets compressed down quite a lot. And I want to measure this distance just for the record. Considering the plugs in there, 2 1/4 inches of spring space left over. All right, so that tells me with 6 shells in the magazine, okay, I need an additional 2 1/4 inches approximately for spring space. Okay, with that information, I can determine, based on the compression of the spring, the diameter of the spring wire, I can determine with 9 shells in the magazine how much additional space I'm going to need in the new extension for spring space. Because eventually, this is critical, eventually this is going to get cut down, okay? It's probably going to get cut down to somewhere like this. And with 9 shells in the tube, I'm going to need to make sure to make my cut somewhere advanced of that 9th shell to install my plug. And I'm going to leave a little bit of play there, a little bit of additional space there, just in case. But that's basically it. The key is there's about 2 1/4 additional inches to store the compressed spring in the magazine if you load 6 shells in the magazine, okay? When you load 9 shells in the magazine, that's going to end up being like 3 1/2 inches or 4 inches of additional spring space needed. Something like that. So that first measurement is critical. The second thing we're going to do is mark where we're going to make our cut. Okay, because we're going to remove the front end piece of this tube. All right. And we're going to install this collar. Okay, so this collar is going to get installed about 1/8 inch away from the front of this nut. Okay, and the reason I've done that is just so that there's a little bit of play there. So this is tight. This is in the final position when the gun is going to be fired. And I'm going to put this down here and we're going to make our measurements. So I want just 1/8, and I'm just going to eyeball it, all right? Because I don't want it to be so tight up to this that if for some reason this piece starts to get worn down over time, there's no additional distance there to screw it in, okay? Because the trick is, you also want the running edge of this mag tube to be flush up against the running edge of the existing mag tube. So this piece, if it's loose like this, the spring and the follower might get hooked up. So you want this to be flush, screwed down tight. And then this is also an important measurement to take. What is the length of this, okay? I would if you can find something that's longer than this, that's great. I would prefer like a 2 1/2 or 3 inch piece here for additional support. But I'm pretty sure that when all this is JB welded together here, it's going to be pretty solid. That JB Quick is like 3,000 pounds per square inch, and you know, we're just holding a spring and some shells. You know, we're not like gluing a barrel together or something like that. This is a accessory component, and it's not going to be under a whole lot of tremendous force. (11/16), man. Okay, so it's 1 11/16 for the record. 27/16 divided by 2. 13.5/16. So the halfway mark, and this can also be approximate, but the halfway mark on this is going to be 13.5/16. So this, let's just do it right here. All right, 16, 15, 14, 13 and a half. Just make a mark on there like that. That's about halfway. Okay, and then I'm going to space this about 1/8 of an inch out. All right, just like that. And I'm going to make a mark on this tube, and this is where the cut is going to be. So the tubing cutter is going to be lined up right there. So I'm going to cut this piece off. I'm going to properly form this piece on the inside, and then we're going to mount this. Another measurement I need is the back side of this, which is going to be right there. All right, because between these two marks, I'm going to roughen up this surface. Okay, all of this is going to be roughed up. It's going to be worked down so that the fit inside of this conduit coupling is really nice and tight. This is going to be a gluing surface here. So this is all going to be worked up, roughed up. It's not going to look pretty when I get done. All right, so let's just take a look at this here. The cut mark is right here. That's the cut mark. Okay, this is the finish mark here. Just going to put an F there. All right, so from this point forward, we're not going to touch this exterior coating, but between these two marks here, we're going to sand file this down to make sure it fits. All right, inside this coupling. I know there's some redundancy here in my explanations, but that's pretty much what we're getting at. This is the piece we're working with today. The trick, one of the most important parts of this project, actually probably the most important part of this project, is to make this tubing cut right here, to make a really nice, clean, careful, square, flush, square tubing cut, so that when this tubing fits in here, these two pieces are going to be nice and flush. That's going to be really important for the glue up. Having this cut nice and flush here is going to be really important for the glue up of these two pieces, because there's a little bit of play, and I want to take that play out of there and make sure that the glue is evenly flowing around these two pieces by having these two end to end really nicely. All right, so a little bit tricky. The theory is good. The execution may be questionable. So you're going to want to mount this between these two bearings so it doesn't rotate. And you want to tighten this down. This tension knob, you're going to want to tighten this down. And then you're going to want to rotate this. Just go nice and easy around here and see what you can do. You can see it right there. See that? There's actually nice deep cut in this. It's just taking a little bit of time and patience. But look, it's a perfectly flush 90-degree cut, and that's exactly what we want. That's one of the most important things about this project, is getting a really good cut here. So spent some extra money for this cutter and some extra time and patience. Okay, there you go. Eureka. It's a nice clean cut. I don't know, it took about 10 minutes or so. Just be patient, man. And the other thing is this little magnet. It's clearly steel. It's mild steel, cut through pretty decently. So step 2 is going to be to take a fresh chainsaw file and work all the way around this consistently. All right, to file this down. This edge is what's going to receive the shotgun shell. All right, the shotgun shell is going to be moving through there like that. So you can see there's a difference here. And this has got a lip on it. Okay, so it's a little bit thinner than what you see here. But this shell, okay, it's a standard mag tube. This is a standard mag tube. These two surfaces have got to be in somewhat of agreement with each other from the inside. So I got to work this down a little bit so that when this shell comes out of here and goes into here, there's not going to be a rough edge. Okay, that's critical. That's like another critical step. First critical step is to make a nice square cut. Okay, so when I glue these up, they're nice and flush, and that looks really good, right? See that? It's getting there. See that? I mean, it's not like perfect machining or anything, but when it comes to that shotgun shell flying over that lip, that's all it's going to need, especially once that's, yeah, so that's pretty good. There's much less catch there than there was when it was first cut. All right. Now this tube here is a little bit smaller diameter than this one. See that? And this already has the beginnings of a chamfer in it. So you can see that there needs to be a little bit more. I wonder if we can see it this way. Oh yeah, we can. See that? That is pretty dope. Let's see. Let's get something. Let's get bright color back there. It's a lot smoother than I kind of expected. It's actually, this process is working. There's a little bit of a bump there. You can feel it. So if you hold this evenly on the external surfaces, and then just feel in there. Okay. Another way to test this out, another way to make sure that this is properly machined, will be to put this on here. Okay, now I think what I need to do, before I go any further on this, I need to work the outside so this is going to fit in here. And then I can slide them together, and I can feel in there to see how well how smooth it is. So that's what we're going to do now. We'll cut this in half so there's less space there. Let's see if we can get this. Yeah. Just work it like that, man. See that? Just keep working it until it starts to get loose. All right, see, that's definitely taking steel off of those threads, man, for sure. And I'm just gonna look down in here and make sure I haven't gone too far. Then I'm gonna go the opposite direction. It's getting easier. Smoothing out. It's definitely getting easier. Okay, let's pull it off and see what we got. Oh yeah, check that out. That's nice. That's definitely nice. I smoothed that out pretty consistently. So we're getting there. These are actually fit together. A little bit tight. What I did was I took my sandpaper and I took the finish off of this. Okay, 220 grit sandpaper. This is going to be fit down till it's 1/8 above those threads about. So this is going to be the gluing surface. All right, and I'm doing most of my work in here. Okay, this is just taking off the external coating. You can still see there's some coating on there in the pits. So I'm not taking this down too much because I don't want to weaken this tube. All right. And I haven't finished off the chamfer in there either. That's going to be much, much better when I'm done. These are starting to fit together. This is the magazine tube that I'm using on the interior. Okay. Oh, wrong side. Definitely don't sand down the other side because you want this to be as tight as possible. Mark your side. The red side is the proper side. But you can see that's now loose on that half piece of sandpaper. What I did was I'm now able to jump up to a full square of sandpaper, and I can put this on here, and I just keep my thumb like right about the halfway mark there, and I'm just rotating that. So we're getting some progress, and I'm just going to keep going with this until those two pieces fit together. And then check this out here. Check this out here. See that? Oh, baby. Oh, you see that? I mean, you could almost press fit this on here, but I don't want to because it's going to be really difficult to take apart. All right. These pieces, give them a little twist. They're starting to fit on pretty close. You can see those 220 grit scuffs on there, which is exactly just fine for, look at that. It's good scuffing, good scuffage. That's just fine for JB Quick. This is the piece we've been working on. This is the red side. This is the marked side. Used shotgun tubes going on this side. The existing extension is going on this side. But look at this, check this out. See that? It's just about where I want it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this on the shotgun like this and just see how it looks. All right. This is that to make sure that this collar is not going to impact the barrel. So what we're going to do is just thread this in. This is already tightened down, so we're going to thread this into its final position. Oh yeah. See that? All right. Let's see if we can just lift this up a little bit. Dude, this actually looks really good. So it's threaded into its final position. There's the threads there. This is going to come down. And there's a little bit of space there. See that? That's good. That's exactly where I want it. Here is our extension. Okay. Let's just move this back a little bit. Yeah, man. You can see the play in this. Okay, we're gonna rely on the JB weld to take the play out of that. So it's the glue up process is going to be really critical. The difference between this project working and not working is going to be this chamfer here. All right. So you can see the difference, right? The outside diameters, it's pretty critical. The outside diameter of this is really similar, quite similar. It's a little bit looser on this. What that means is that we got to take more material off of here, off the inside, to match up with this properly. All right. When we do the glue up, there's more tolerance play inside that collar here. When we do the glue up, we'll glue this up first and make it permanent and wait for it to set. And then when we glue this up, we're gonna glue it up, and then I'm gonna feel down in here right during the glue up and make sure that it's aligned all the way around during the glue up. There's a transition there that I can feel, and I don't want that transition in there. I want it to be I want there to be a nice wide ramp in here. So my file angle is going to be just a little bit, not like this. It's going to be just a little bit, because I want to take off as much of that inner material as possible. Okay. Make that file angle extremely shallow. And then rotate this. So that you're getting even coverage all the way around. And just make that really, really shallow. And then we take our tube. Okay. Put this on our tube here. Right? And then I just want to feel in here. Another thing I like is that I can get my finger in here. So if I needed to, I could put a little sandpaper on my finger, go in here after the fact, and sand this down some more. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take sandpaper to this with my finger and just hit it, make it a lot smoother. All right, let's just grab a piece here and show you how that's going to work. Oh yeah. So step one, I'm just going to clean my hands. You know, I talked about this before in previous videos, but it's really important that when you're using freaking epoxy, your surface prep is pretty critical. So I'm just going to wipe down my hands here pretty good. Got some pretty dirty hands from all of that work, but and then got my JB I'm going to wipe these down just to get all the gross, problematic contamination off of here. Got a really good inner chamfer there going on. So but the glue is going to go on the outside here. All right, so, and then this is the side, the red square side that the epoxy is going to go in. So, and we got some isopropyl here. So again, we're gonna clean this up a couple times with the ISO. You know, I think ethanol is even better, but we're just gonna, this will be good enough for sure. We'll put some ISO on there, just a little bit, not too much. And this is the side to be glued. And I just stuck with 220 grit for everything because the 220 grit works. It's steel, so 220 grit is made everything pretty smooth, but it's also given everything enough scuffage that it's going to work pretty good. And the trick is, don't mix up your sides, man. The sides to be glued, don't get that wrong, man. This is a side that's going to get glued. And we're going to do that 3 times, because 3 is always the key. All right. So we're going to hit the outside of this, and then we're going to hit the inside of this. That's interesting. Looks like there's some gunk in there. Yeah, there is some gunk in there. Okay, so we're going to hit that again, of course. We'll do 4 times. And the epoxy's pretty freaking good, and the fit is super tight. So, and there's going to be a specific method for this glue up. All right, it's going to be a specific method because these pieces are fit together so tight. The tolerance is so good that and the set time for the epoxy is so fast that I'm not actually going to put a whole bunch of epoxy on here all the way around and everything. You'll see it's going to be twisted in place. It's going to be glued at 4 evenly spaced locations, and then it's going to be twisted in place because it's just going to hold, man, because the fit is so tight. You know, that's really important to keep in mind, that if you got a tight fit, it's not going to do you any good to put a whole bunch of epoxy on there. When you go to fit that stuff together, it's not going to want to fit together. There you go, just like that. Okay, so we'll just let this dry a minute. All right. And we'll just lightly take the dust off of this. Okay, that's just got to dry. So we'll let that dry for like 5 minutes or so. I don't want to freaking have it all moist in there. All right, so I'm just looking in here. There we go. You can see all the scuffage on there. That's exactly what you want with JB Weld. Okay. And it's pretty dry. It's obviously dry now. Okay, and then this piece, this is the side that's going to get glued. And I just wanted you to see what it looks like after all that sanding. Right, there's a weld there. So you can see we took a significant part of the threads off of there. But those threads are going to help with the glue up too, quite a lot. And then this is the other side. This side has not been sanded at all. That's the side that's going to get glued tomorrow with the extension tube. So this is the side we're going to work with tonight. There we go. So it's pretty smooth. It's also got good scuffage in it. All right, so we're ready to mix this stuff up here. Okay, these are the two pieces. Just put them up here for now. Okay. So the method I'm going to use for this particular part is I'm going to mix the JB Weld. Okay. I'm going to get it on the freaking stick. And I'm going to make 4 equally spaced spots on here. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. There's going to be pretty decent glob on there. And 4, basically the 4 corners. Okay. Or the 4 cardinal directions. And then this is pretty loose up here. So I'm going to slowly turn this on like this. And I'm going to spin it. And actually what I want to do is I want to start spinning it quite a lot. I want to spin it quite a lot as I turn it on. And then I'm going to push it into place like that. Okay. What that's going to do is it's going to spread out those 4 areas evenly around here. You know, I'm going to do complete 360-degree turns. It's going to spread out all 4 areas. I'm not going to put any glue inside here because I don't want to force glue down into the location where the 2 pieces are going to, the 2 pieces are going to come together. Because then when that glue hardens up, it's going to be in the way. Okay. So the glue's only going to go on here, and the glue is going to be pushed in that direction as I spin this on. Okay. That's the trick. And then we'll check it with the flashlight to make sure that there's no glue on the inner area. Because if you glue this up and you get a bunch of glue on the inner area, that's going to just be in the way when you go to put the second piece on tomorrow. Okay. All right. So here we go. Right on. Hardener and steel. You're not going to need much for this, man. This is, you know, in my early days, I always put way too much weld down. There. That's probably more than I need, man. It's probably more than I need. Okay, so there's only 6 minutes after this is mixed. So that's one of the reasons why I'm keeping this simple. Trying to keep this as simple as possible. And I'm just kind of eyeballing. Yeah, that's enough, man. That's approximately equal parts. And then you just start mixing this stuff, man. No time for messing around. This is way more than I need, man. Look at that. Okay, so obviously this is way more than I need. And the rule with this stuff is you just mix it and then mix it some more. Okay. And then I'm bringing a second mixer here just to finish it off. And once this is set, man, it's just irreversible, pretty much, unless you heat it up to, like, I don't know, quite warm. It's going to be irreversible. And this piece is pretty far away from it's far enough away from the barrel that, you know, should be okay. All right. So this is where you breathe. This is the part where you breathe. Just breathe deeply. Take your time. All right. Of course, the freaking bug has got to show up right when I'm trying to do this. Wow, man. Talk about the devil in the details. Okay. Just like that. All right. Just put it on there. That's a pretty good dollop. Okay. Then turn this 90 degrees. Put that on there like that. And you want to keep it off the edge, the front edge of that thing. Just get it down there. Keep it off the front edge. You're not going to have a problem because turn this 90 degrees again, because you're pushing the piece on. So as long as you keep it off the front edge, you'll be just fine. And then turn this 90 degrees again. Starting to set up just a little bit. I can feel it. Hopefully that moth will not land in the situation. Okay, that's good. And just breathe deeply. And remember, you're going to turn this a lot as you push it in there, okay? Turning this a lot. Just like that. And it's going to get tight. Just keep turning it. Keep turning it. There we go. That's it, man. That's called done. And you just break off this. And you come up here. And you just very gently remove the excess so it doesn't look stupid, you know? And if you get some on the outside of the barrel here, that's okay, because you're going to be able to clean that up later. Definitely want to make sure you do not get it on the threads. That's why I try not to use too much. And this has still got pretty decent working time. So I'm just going to keep going around until I got this nice and clean. One of the things I noticed is that the moths, the forest bugs, come out like between 9 and 11, 9 and midnight. And then they just go away. They come out and then they go away. And then I'm going to turn this here. I'm just going to come in here and wipe this off too. Okay. And I just want this to look pretty good, you know. So I'm gonna look down in there as I go. Okay, that's good. Let's take our wipe and just wipe this off. There we go. And then just wipe this corner. Like that. And just go around and wipe the corner. Just keep going around. And then I'm looking inside here, and there's no weld at all on the inside. And we know that the fit is like perfect tolerances. There's no wobble or wiggle. So this piece is perfectly aligned in there. So we don't have to worry about that either. All right. So I just want to take and see if I can scrape off a little bit of this stuff that's on the tube section. Just even it out a little bit so it doesn't look like messy. There we go. There we go. That's good enough. Can't be a perfectionist. Okay, so this is 4 hours to set. We're gonna let it set overnight. And that's it, man. That's it. We can take off this sticker, which is pretty well stuck on here, because we don't need it anymore. You know, when I twisted this piece in, I had to really push on it, man. After that last, quarter of an inch or something, I had to put some pretty serious force on it. So it's nice, and it's glued up nice and tight, man. And that weld is already pretty sticky. It doesn't flow, man. I mean, it sets so quick that it doesn't really flow. So, and we spun it on there, a number of 360-degree turns. So we're talking, man, it's glued up. And there's no glue inside there. I'll have to show you in the morning or in the daylight. But there's no glue inside there, so that's good too. And just keep it upright like that. Cool, man. That's a super success, man. We got to the point where we actually gluing up the part. We're getting down the road, man. Another couple sessions, and we'll be shooting shells, which I'm pretty excited about. So far, so good, man. So far, so good. Tomorrow's actually even more critical, because gluing up that extension piece is going to require a lot more. It's going to require a lot more. It's just going to be a little bit. It's just going to be more tedious. But yeah, that's it. It's in there real tight. You saw how tight it was. I'm pretty happy about it. One thing is, this is going to add some weight to the front end of the shotgun for sure, because this piece has got some weight to it, and this has got a little weight to it, and then the shells are going to add some weight too. But it's not, this is a kind of a home defense kind of situation. Not really going to be carrying it a long way. Right on. Very exciting. This is a critical part of getting this done. This part, getting this piece lined up in here, getting it cut properly, getting it fit in there nice and tight. I mean, this weld is never going to break. And this stage of the game is going to allow us to fit this in properly tomorrow. See that? I mean, the JB Quick is already set, but that's going to be a very important part of getting this thing glued in tomorrow. See that? It's 1/8 of an inch away from the threads. All right. There we go. It's pretty clean glue up. Push the glue all the way up to the top edge there. And then if you look down inside here, because of the way we did it, there's no glue protruding into that area, which is very important. You want that to be totally like machine clean there. Otherwise, when you fit the extension tube in, it's not going to lie flat. It's going to impact that dry glue. And what else here? Let's see. Let me see here. Can you see the chamfer? See that rounded edge there? Well, that's bright, huh? That's just too bright. Anyway, there's the rounded edge in there. There you go. See that? Nicely rounded edge. That's what you want. You can't just slap this together, without, paying attention to the details. See that rounded edge there? Okay, so this is day 2 of the DIY shotgun extension project for the Panzer EG200. And this is what I've got. All right. I've got a bungee cord centered in this setup, and it's going all the way through this system. I've just got these screws here, which are relatively immobile, and this bungee cord is providing some pretty heavy duty tension on these two parts. So this is the part we made last night. And you remember from my previous discussion, the surface of the tubing here is nice and square. And so, and this used 12 gauge shotgun tube is just a little bit loose in here. But I want this entire unit to be nice and straight, so when I mount it on the shotgun, it's not crooked. And I want this flush edge to be nice and tight inside this collar, this coupling. I want it to be nice and tight up against +1 extension tube that we machined down yesterday. And that, hopefully, those two edges, the edge that's inside here and this edge, are cut nice and perpendicular. When I go to glue this up, okay, they're going to be flush to each other, and there's not going to be any ridge in here for the shotgun shell to impact. So the idea is, and I'm going to clean this up and prep it first, but the idea is we're going to JB weld up in here. We're going to mark this, okay, for the depth that it's going to go into this coupling, and we're going to put JB weld on here. Now the tolerance between the OD of this tube and the ID of this coupling is just a little bit loose. So there's going to be plenty of space in here for the glue to glue up inside here. But if this is out of alignment here with this extension piece, there's going to be a ridge on one side or the other of this. There's going to be a ridge. So this is probably one of the most important parts of the project. The first part of the project was building this piece, making sure that it was properly chamfered inside here, and making sure that there was a really nice perpendicular edge on this +1 extension. Step 2 is going to be to properly prep this, glue it up, and then slide these together. And the way that's going to work is I've got this wire piece from a binder clip, and it's pinched in there. And this is going to allow me to put the glue on here. All right. And then I'm going to be able to pull this apart. I'm going to be able to pull this apart like this. And then I'm going to very carefully twist this in place as I set it down into the tube. And then I'm going to look down inside here and make sure it's lined up properly. And then I'm going to clean up this upper edge and make sure that that's nice and clean. So first, I'm going to show you how this is set up, all right? So this screw comes out of here like this, and this bungee, okay, runs down the inside. There's another screw over here, okay? And so these bungees become an important part of this operation. Now, yesterday, we roughed this up, okay? But what I noticed is that because this is a used tube, and because of the design of this tube, there's ridges on this tube, which I don't mind. But these ridges are continuous through this part, and they stop. The ridges stop on this other side right about here. So this is perfectly round here, whereas the rest of this tube has kind of got a hexagonal ridge-like design. And I think that's to make it so that the shells travel better inside the tube. But what I noticed, just looking at this a little bit closer, is that because of those ridges, there's more play on this ridged side of the tube, whereas this round side has less play. All right, it's just a little bit less play, and it seems to line up better. When I look down through here, it seems to line up better. This has less play in it. The other thing I noticed is that when I run the bungee cord down in here and pull this on, it actually helps this line up and stay aligned. So with just a little bit of adjustment maybe during glue up, this is going to be tightly fit down on there, okay? And it'll be in alignment. So the first step, though, is going to be to just scuff up this end. I'm going to take a measurement here, okay? I'm going to run some tape around here. I'm going to scuff up this end, and I'm just going to lightly chamfer this edge here. Just enough so that there is just a little bit less of an edge there for the shells to hit, okay? Now the diameter of this tube, the wall thickness of this tube is thinner than the wall thickness of this. So when I put these together, okay, this is not going to nearly have as much of an impact on the shell movement inside the tube as this here. And that's why this has got that rounded chamfer, like a ramp. That's why we fabricated a ramp into this, okay? So that'll be step one, is we're going to take some quick measurements. We're going to put some tape on here to make sure that during glue up, if any glue comes out the top of the collar, then during cleanup, that tape is kind of just protecting it from becoming a big mess. Right now, we're just going to do a little bit of sanding and a little bit of cleaning. And then we're going to get into the glue up pretty quickly because there's not much prep work that needs to happen. There's not much prep work that needs to happen. And there's not much I can do to further control the situation. Just got to kind of do it. Just got to kind of risk it and see how it goes. Alrighty. So basically you pick your end that you want to be used for the glue up, right? That's basically what you got to do. Is that it's just going to be based on your specific used shotgun tube or whatever pipe tubing you might be using. You're going to have to decide which end is going to be glued up. And for me, this is the end that's going to get glued up. And this tube has got, you know, a little bit of superficial rust on it. The bluing's kind of worn out. I'm not too worried about that because it's going to get painted on the outside and it's going to get oiled on the inside. And so it'll be all right. But basically, you want to wipe that down just to get any of the junk off of it. And then put your paper in there. And then just really lightly chamfer around the edge there. Just to take off any like rough corner, you know. I don't really want to do I don't want to put too much of a chamfer on here. I just want to take off that rough corner. Make sure that it's more likely to bump the shotgun shell than to catch the shotgun shell, you know. And you may find that your tube already has somewhat of a chamfer on it. This one looks like it's got just a little bit of a ramp on it already. So I'm just cleaning this up. Yeah, okay, so that feels a lot, that feels better. The other thing is, this edge of the tube is rough, is more rough. It's kind of pitted, it's more rough. Whereas this edge of the tube is nice and flat, smooth, okay? That's why I want to use this for glue up, because it just, in so many different ways, it just fits better. So that's going to be for you to decide based on the characteristics of your individual tube. Now we're going to do just a little bit more cleaning. Do just a little bit more cleaning here. I mean, you can see it's kind of rusty inside. Not too worried about that. After you oil this thing up and start using it, all that rust, you know, during the cleaning process, during the daily cleaning process or whatever, is going to just get pretty much taken care of. Okay. All right. And now we're going to put this on here. And we're going to mark it with some tape. All right. Right about there. It's not perfect, but it'll do. Just Gonna do just fine. Just to kind of keep the tube from getting gunk on it during the glue up process. All right, just make sure that it's stuck down pretty good there. Okay, so that goes on there, and that's looking good. That's just fine. Perfection is really important. Like when it came to mounting this piece to this piece, that was really important. When it comes to having a nice perpendicular edge here, that's really important. When it comes to pushing these together, that's really important. But lining up this tape, that's not an item of perfection. Okay, then we're going to take a side of our file and we're just going to gently start at the top of the tape here and go around and just score this. We're going to go around a couple times and just score this up. This isn't really going to affect the fitment. It's just going to give some structure for the glue to grab. And you can use sandpaper for this, but I'm just gonna, because it's somewhat of just a lightly loose fit, I want some deeper scoring on this. So because it's got a little bit of a lighter fit, a looser fit, I just want to make sure that it's got a little bit more texture to it for the glue up, because there's going to be a little bit more flex on this side. And try and run this up against the tape as close as possible, as close as you can. Because the way this gets glued, the glue is going to push up forward, and so you're actually going to have more glued coverage up here than down here. So you just want to make sure that it's going to be scored pretty good. And this doesn't really weaken the tube or anything. It's just you're just scoring it. Okay. And get it down here too. All right, that's good enough. We're not really shooting for perfection here. Not at this juncture. Okay, then we're gonna just do some alcohol cleaning real quick here. Just to get any oil off of here. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing to the coupling on this threaded side. Now, we already cleaned this last night, so it's doing pretty good. I'm just going to give it one more good wipe. And wipe this section up here around this edge. Okay, we're going to let those dry. Just make sure the fuzz is off of this. All right. So the way this tension system works is you've got 2 screws, you've got 2 bungee cords, and you've got this binder clip piece. And this is just going to provide a lot more support during the glue up. It's going to keep the 2 pieces forcefully together during the glue up. So you just hook this on there, pull this all the way through, hook it on there. Okay, so now you've got your bungee cord is installed. See that? That's good force. It's real good force. Okay, but you want the cord to be centered in the system so that there's no unnatural angle during glue up. So you're just going to take the screw and you're going to align it inside there like that. Ah, yeah. Okay. They do the same thing to the other side. Take this, put it through there, pull this up, and then put it down the side like that. Okay, so now there's a bungee cord that's holding this piece straight on. Okay, and you can see this will rock a little bit. See that, how it rocks? But if it's not, if it's flat and it's not rocked, that means that this is relatively straight. So this binder clip goes on here like this, down inside there. There we go. Something like that. Basically, this is going to allow me to apply the glue and then seat the unit. Okay. And I'm satisfied that this is ready at this point. So it's time for glue up. Because this is a loose fitment, we're actually going to put quite a lot of glue on this. So I'm going to mix it and I'm going to be dabbing it down on here all the way around. Okay. And then we're going to twist it on. And we're going to use about the same amount that we used last time. About the same amount. The trick here is not to get glue on this bottom edge here, because you don't want glue inside the tube. You just want the glue to be on the outside, and this is going to get pushed on, so it's going to force the glue that direction. All right, that's just really important for glue up. And then we're going to take this and just put it on this tube. And we're just gonna get this close. Get it close, but not too close. See that? Just right up in there, but not over the edge. Just take your time. You got some time. And it's going to get twisted on anyway. So you just get this up there and then spread it upward like that. And you rub it in too while you're working. Make sure it's nice and rubbed in. You take another dollop, put it on there. So you got 6 minutes. So you work a little bit quickly. Just going all the way around. And this twisting action that's going to really spread it out evenly inside the tube. Okay, last little bit. Just get it on there. Stay away from that edge, man. You know? And then just move this up. I mean, that's a lot. That's plenty. It's a lot of epoxy on there. And we got the tape on there too, so you can just bring it up here too. Okay, it's starting to harden up a little bit. I can feel it starting to get thick. So I'm just about ready to push this thing on here because it's starting to get pretty thick. All right, here we go. This is how this works. You pull this apart, you pull this out, and you very slowly and carefully let this slide in. And it's seated. Okay. It's seated. And now I'm going to look down the side there off camera and just take a really good look at this. Rotate it a little bit. Take a really good look at this. This is just a part. I'm just not going to be able to share this part with you. Rotate it like this. And that's just going to even it out in there, man. It's going to help line it up and even it out. Okay, and then I'm going to flip this over again. Take a look. Yeah, man, that looks good. Okay, it looks really good. So now I'm going to hold it upright like this while I do my cleaning routine. Okay, because we're going to scrape this off of here. We don't need it on there. So I'm just going to scrape this off. This stuff on the top edge here. Gently, so you don't mess up the alignment. And you're going to be able to take that tape off later. So you just scrape this along the top edge here. And it's definitely firming up now. Oh yeah. And there's plenty of time later after this sets to do some cleaning and some sanding and all that stuff. Just want to kind of get this off the tape a little bit. Okay. Got a little bit here. Just going to kind of take that off. I'm not going to put a whole lot of force on this because, like I said, the tolerances are a little bit loose, more loose. So I'm just going to scrape this gently. Just to kind of get the goobers off. All right. That's good. Okay. That's it. And let's see if maybe I can show you what the inside looks like. Okay, do you see that edge? Okay. Very consistent. See that? Very consistent all the way around. And I'm probably going to run some sandpaper in there. But as far as the two tubes matching up nicely, there's no side that's peeking out more. There's no edge that's peeking out more than the other. And the shotgun tube, you can see along here the ridges inside there, and then those ridges end and it becomes round and smooth. So it's actually this upper line here that we're looking at. Okay, so let's just look at that real quick. See that upper line? It's lined up. Okay, right on. We'll just let this set. Okay, the last thing you want to do is don't store this sideways, because that glue's still setting, and any kind of like side forces on this will cause it to freaking slide around and move. So what I would do is I would just take your bungee and just let this hang gently while it sets. Okay, so this is what we got. The mag extension is cured up good, and what I've done is I got some Winchester 2 3/4 full brass, and I just want to see what point the 9th shell is in the magazine. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And those shells seem to be moving pretty easily. So just make sure that you can feel them down here, right? Caught by the lifter, caught by the shell catch. Okay. So they're in there. And then put this down in here and take a measurement. Okay. So it's 8.5, 8 5/8, right? Okay, so 8 5/8. So then we'll measure 8 5/8 here. So right here is where that shell is at, right? It's right here. And then we calculated for 9 shells, we calculated 8.5 centimeters, right? And so what I did was I expanded that to 10 centimeters. So an additional 1.5 centimeters. So 10 centimeters is 4 inches, right? 10 centimeters is 4 inches. Plus a lifter, plus a plug, right? So what I did was I put my mark here at about 4 3/4 inches for the cut, right? So the plug's going to be in there. That's going to take up space. And then there's going to be a shell follower in there, and that's going to take up space. So 4 3/4 inches represents the plug and the little bit of the shell follower. Because the shell follower is not that much because the spring is actually inside the follower. So our cut line is right here. Okay, that's where we're going to put our cut line. And this is just very rough estimation. So it may be that this is not enough distance to compress the spring for 9 shells, but we'll just have to see. So this is where I'm going to put my cut. That's going to be the end of the extension, and I'm just going to live with whatever it is that I need to live with for this cut. We're going to make the cut the same way we've made all the other cuts. We're just going to use this, and then I'm going to mount this plug in the end of here. And it's pretty self-explanatory, so I'm just going to show you the end product of that. But basically, I loaded my shells in, my 9 shells. Okay. I calculated 4 inches at 10 centimeters, right? Which is right about there, plus the plug, plus a little bit for the shell follower, okay? So that's as conservative as I can be. It's just as conservative. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, I think I'm going to make my cut here. So this is 4 inches. I'm going to make my cut at 5 inches because it's okay to just add another inch to your setup, dude. Okay, so this is what we got. We cut the piece off the end of this pipe, and the hole in this plug is going to create a problem for the spring. This really needs to be flush. So we're going to put a Jefferson nickel on top of there with some epoxy, and then I'm going to clean up this surface here, and I'm going to scuff up this surface here, and we're going to epoxy that together because I'm getting to the point where I want to shoot this thing, and looking forward to testing it out. All right, so we finished up this shotgun tube last night. And we're gonna install the spring and see how that works out. So this is the original, well, the previous spring I was using, the Wolf Extra Power spring, and it's clearly too short for the tube. But what I noticed right away was This is definitely a different spring. So this is supposed to be a 45-inch 12-gauge extra power spring, and it's just smaller. Coils are definitely closer together. These coils were quite wide apart when I got it, and then it compressed. So we'll just see how it goes. This kind of sort of looks like it's a 20-gauge spring, but it says 12-gauge, 45-inch, cut to length. So we'll just put this in. I'm going to put the shell follower on here, like that. If you read online, basically says to start out with a 16-inch length. Start out with 16, anywhere between 12 and 16. So it says to start out with a 16-inch length with the spring installed in the extension tube. So we're going to lay this out here, and we're going to go to 16. I think 16 is probably going to be too long for what we're doing. Probably going to be difficult to load in. So we'll go with 14. Right there. So you want this to line up like that, because the threads are going to be overlapping. So that basically means we're going to cut off this end over here. Okay. And we've got a plug in here, goes to about there. So we're going to cut this right there. We're just going to bend this in a little bit right here. Okay. And then that's how that's going to line up there. And I think this is probably just going to still be too long. As a matter of fact, this may just not be the right spring for this shotgun. So that's 13. So what we'll do is we'll put this inside here, and we'll just start to compress this down. And the trick is, there we go. Okay, so we got 13 inches in there. I mean, if you can't get your spring in, then it's probably just too long. So we're doing 13. Okay, so that's in and that's down, right? Looks good, right? It does actually look pretty good. It's kind of got that steampunk effect. And you can see it's lined up pretty good there too. Now we're going to load in some shells here. See what we can do. That was pretty easy. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are high brass 2 3/4 game loads, like dove loads. 8-shot dove loads. so they're not quite as long as you might get in a 2 3/4 buck shot or 2 3/4 slug. Okay, so that one was getting a little bit tight. And then we'll just cycle these out real quick here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so it took 9 pretty nicely, actually. So let's go ahead and load those in again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So the tension on that 9th round is not too bad, actually. Let's see if it'll take a couple more. It's got to be pretty compressed, man, because remember, when we calculated this, we calculated that 9 rounds is already to here, which means that spring, that entire spring is compressed into this section here. Looks like the cap's staying on. That's good. Okay, that was 9. 10. That's it, 10. So it's taking 10, 2 3/4, which is cool. So if I wanted to, basically, I overestimated the system. I overestimated the spring storage area here, because I wanted to make sure I had at least had enough length in this tube for 9. So but basically what this is telling me is I could cut this down, I could shorten this a little bit more, you know. It's taking 10 and it's tight on 10, which means it'll probably take 9 3-inch shells, which is cool. But if I wanted to, I could probably shorten this a whole shell length, right? A little bit more. But I kind of like this length. This looks good. I'm kind of liking this. So that's 10. So we'll just put this in here, cycle those out. That's 10. So, right on. I think we're seeing some success here with this new magazine tube. And this seems to be nice and tight. So, I'm not going to paint this right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just get some fine steel wool and clean up this bluing a little bit. And then I'm just going to leave it, because it's kind of got that steampunk effect. And this zinc collar, right, goes really well with this nickel coated equipment here. And this brass end cap just looks cool. Just looks cool. It's a little bit bigger diameter, but I think that's cool. And it's got a polish to it. So, you know, as far as like a DIY, this is what you did. You made it yourself. You know, put your own creative mind into it. This has got that authentic, kind of like that authentic vintage 1920s, you know, build your shotgun in your basement kind of look. So I'm kind of cool with this right now. And it takes 10 shells, which means it'll take 10 plus 1 if you put one in the chamber. 3, 4, 5. Let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got one in the chamber, dude. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. 10. So that's it. It's been, 24 to 36 hours since this was glued up with the JB Quick. This was glued up last night. It's been about 8 hours. And so things are doing pretty good. Seems to be holding spring tension. One thing you could do is you could drill a really fine hole in here and mount a pin sideways through here with some more JB Quick, and then just grind it down real nicely, real carefully, so it doesn't really affect the finish. It's kind of cool the way the bluing is kind of worn out here. It's got some patina to it. There's a little bit of a gap here. A little bit less than I wanted, really. But I kind of wanted it to be about 1/8. But it looks like it turned out to be like a 1/16. But there's enough there. It's kind of interesting how I lost that distance there. Must not have been paying attention. There is still a little bit of a gap there, like a millimeter basically. But that's it. That's the DIY Panzer EG200 10 shot 10 plus 1 mag tube extension. So the final dimensions on this are, total final dimensions are about 12.5 to the edge of the threads, and the shotgun tube ended up getting cut down to 10.5 inches, right? So if you get yourself a 10.5 length of shotgun tube, this is a 1 3/4 collar, right? And this has got about a 1/2 inch of internal space here on this end cap. So that's what you need pretty much, a 10.5 inch shotgun tube, 1 3/4 coupler, right? Your original +1 extension tube cut down, and an end cap, and the total length is basically 12.5. So just about a foot. 10 plus 1. 10 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. Panzer EG200. Yeah, right on. It's 6:30 a.m. Sun's just coming up. So fresh out in the forest. Feels good. Just going for a quick walk here just to wrap things up. So that's the project. It's doable. You got to wait a couple weeks for the parts. You got to be willing to spend the money and the time. But I mean, what do we use? We use like no complicated tooling, just sandpaper, files, right? A tubing cutter, pretty straightforward stuff. So anybody can pretty much do that project right there, man. Anybody can do it. And worked out to be a little bit longer than a little bit higher capacity than I anticipated. Well, I kind of calculated for that. It's because I didn't want to go for 9 and then get stuck on 8. But it's 10, 2 3/4, nice and tight. That's the thing. So that 10th shell is really just topped off. That's as many as you're gonna get in there. So I'm gonna shoot it a little bit later, maybe this afternoon. Maybe, you know, in a couple days. Gonna let the glue set up. I'm carrying the shotgun right now. All right. And it's got some weight to it, but it's not too bad on the sling. It's not too bad on the sling at all. And JB Quick, you know, works good as long as you do your prep right and let it set properly. Works real good. Have a little bit of morning raindrops here too. So yeah, I just wanted to give you some FaceTime, say hi, and I hope this is helpful to some people. If you want to extend the mag on your shotgun, it's not that complicated. Just get yourself an aftermarket 12 gauge tube, you know, used one, and that coupler, it's like $2.50, $3, and it's the electrical conduit coupler. Works good. You know, the only trick with the whole project is getting those tubes aligned. The tubes are not exactly the same wall thickness, OD and ID. Then you're gonna need to just be really careful about the glue up to make sure that those tubes are aligned. That's the only trick. And you know, when you sand things down and custom fit everything, it's just a careful process. So let's check this thing out real quick here. Oh yeah, man. Freaking looks cool, you know? Looks cool. Let's go tip to butt here. You see there's a pretty decent gap there, about a 1/16, right? There's our light. Right on, that's the Coast Slayer light, mounted with Velcro. Stays on good. Even when it's strapped to my back, it stays on good. That actually looks good just the way it is, man. Looks classy. I was gonna paint it black, but not really any need, man. It just looks cool. That collar looks cool. The brass cap looks cool. You know, everything's kind of proportional. Initially, I thought this was gonna just be too much, but it's about the same size as the nut. So that's all right. And this is pretty freaking sturdy, man. Also, let's check out the alignment here, right? See that? Freaking straight. Straight enough. It's definitely sturdy enough to lean up against a wall, you know? For sure. So yeah, good luck on your shotgun extension project, you know? Feel free to drop me some questions if you have any questions. You know, put a lot of detail in the video, so, you know, you probably get the idea. Took me, I don't know, a couple days, you know, a couple hours, a couple per day, a couple days. It's mostly just the glue setup time, cure time for the glue, and some of that hand fitting work. So it's something you could do pretty quick. And, you know, you might not have to spend all that money acquiring the supplies and the tools and stuff. You might have what you need just laying around. So maybe for 20-30 bucks you could do this. If you've already got a shop and you already got the stuff, you already got the parts, it could be pretty easy. So thanks for joining me, everybody. This is a pretty exciting project, and I hope you guys have some good shotgunning coming up. And just remember, live free, die hard. This is the Owl, signing off.